everyone, and welcome to our Oracle AI database series that will be taking place every first Monday of the month at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, unless this falls on a public holiday. This session will focus on Supercharge, or Oracle database using Modal Context Protocol, MCP, where MCP is an open standard that enables AI models to securely connect with external data and tools. Now, I would like to introduce Kris Rice and Jeff Smith as our main presenters. Over to you, Kris and Jeff.
Happy New Year, everyone. We're here from the database team, and we're going to talk to you about how you can take advantage of MCP to leverage your AI technology to get the most out of your Oracle database.
My name's Kris. I run a whole bunch of things at Oracle. So we're going to specialize, like everyone was saying, in this MCP model context protocol stuff. We released our support for it last June, I believe. And like I said, for a second there, tongue in cheek, of course. The protocol has only existed since last October. So it's now on 14, 15 months old. But it's kind of taken off by storm. And that storm is AIs being hungry to get to access to data, to APIs, to databases. And it's become a standard, de facto standard for how to do that. So what we're going to walk you through here is what it is, how you can use it, and starting out with this FreeSQL is a free sandbox from Oracle that you can use so you don't even have to spin up an Oracle database to get going with it.
Kris is being a bit modest. He basically runs all of your front-end interfaces for the database and the mid-tiers and all kinds of other things. But yeah, our team handles this site, freeSQL.com. It's an online portal, or traditionally it was an online portal for folks that wanted to learn SQL or bits of the Oracle database stack. No registrations required. You can just come to freesql.com. Now, why are we showing you this in context of MCP? And we'll talk all about the particulars of MCP. It looked like a little more than half of you have no experience with MCP, and I have lots and lots of slides that cover the ins and outs of this protocol and what our server does to implement it in a safe, secure way. But I thought I'd do some live demo first. And doing demo for an MCP server for the Oracle database means you need to have an Oracle database. So this is now we think the fastest way to get your hands on at least a schema inside of an Oracle database that we're managing for you. So if you come to freesql.com and if you use the same single sign-on that you probably used to register for this event and click the sign in button, it'll prompt you for your Oracle single sign-on and you'll say yes to that. It's then going to give you your own schema in a database that we're running. And you can actually choose between 19 and 26. So those are our two production supported versions of the database.
The 23 option there will disappear as soon as we can update that database to B26.
Yeah. So 23 got rebranded to 26.
Yep. We're just like all of you. We still have to upgrade our database.
Yeah. We also have Jira tickets, just like you folks. So you can use this web portal to run queries, to get execution plans, to browse the dictionary, all of that sort of thing. In my schema, it's pretty empty. I don't have anything. That's going to be part of the demo. But if you are here to truly learn how the database works, we have a bunch of tutorials loaded in, and we have a bunch of sample schemas already preloaded. So here I'm querying the contents of the human resources schema, which is known as HR. And I can run this query, and I can now download this to CSV if I would like. All right, so to get into the AI tie-in, there's a bold box up here that keeps flashing between various platforms like Connect with Python or Node.js or Go or Java or SQLnet. If I click that button, you're going to get a slide out with everything you need to take this from just being an online portal to being your data platform for you teaching yourself or building sandbox apps. So when you want to work with an Oracle database, you need to know where the server is, what the port is, what the service name is. You'll need a username and password, and you'll need a connect string. And if I happen to be using our Python driver, here's a snippet of code to load up that driver, to create the connect string, to connect to the database, even to run a query and get the result set back. if I click this button, create a SQL developer for VS Code connection, this is going to take us to, oops. I'm going to say, yes, that's fine. If I don't already have the SQL Developer extension loaded, it will prompt you to install it. SQL Developer is our ubiquitous IDE GUI for the Oracle database. It's been out for a long time. It's freshly been ported to VS Code as a native extension. And here's everything we need to connect to that instance, except for the password, in which case I just need to go back to that portal and say, hey, show me the password, write it down, keep it someplace safe. And then I just paste it here. And then I'm good to go. I'm good to move on. Now, I've already done this step. I already have a connection here called Free26 AI that I can use to query the database, create tables, just like I could in that online portal. Okay, so Jeff, still, I haven't got the AI stuff yet. Okay, part of our extension automatically includes our MCP server. And that MCP server allows your AI agents to interact with the thing that that MCP server is serving up for, in this case, the database. So there are many, many agents. MCP is pretty much agent and LLM agnostic as long as those agents are implementing the protocol as defined. The MCP server should be good to go. So Kris and I often use an extension in VS Code called Cline. There is a command line version of this available if you want. There are many, many agents out there. We're not really here to tell you which agent or which LLM you want to use. And in this agent, I've got it configured to use our Oracle Code Assist service in the Oracle Cloud. And in that, it's offering me access to this Grok 4 fast reasoning LLM. And I've got this dialog here where I can start chatting with or giving it a set of steps. So I'm going to give it a pretty complicated task. I've got that fresh, empty schema, and I want it to create for me an application schema with a bunch of tables, and I'm telling it exactly what those tables should look like and the kind of data they should have, and how much data I want, and how to put data into it, and even give me views when you're done. So this is real demo. Let's see how this goes. I've done this before. So when you give your agent a task, its job is going to be starting with creating a plan to implement those tasks. And eventually it's going to get to the point of, hey, Jeff or Kris are asking me to do things in an Oracle database. How do I do that? I have prior to this, or automatically done by me via our VS Code extension, client has had an MCP server registered that is advertising itself to the agent. So client sees that it has tools to do things with Oracle, and it's going to implement or want to use those tools to accomplish the tasks. So here you can see it's asking for permission. Client wants to use a tool on our MCP server. The name of the tool is Connect. And there's only one property basically attached to this request, or one argument of realness, and that's the name of the database. So you do want to pay particular attention to the database it wants to work with. You don't want to connect to your production database to do development work, for instance. So I'm feeling okay with this request, and I'm going to just say approve.
So note the other thing that Jeff showed there was unknown LLM. So what we do in our tool, in our MCP server, is we tell the LLM it has to identify itself. So what it should have said is Grok 4 fast reasoning, as you can see on the bottom of Jeff's screen, but what it confused about is projecting that back over. So what happens, and the reason we do this is so that that is logged in the database. It's logged in the normal audit trail. It's in client module identifier. If you're a DBA, you know what $V session is. So there's an audit trail that this LLM, if it gave us the right names, this LLM connected to my database, it performed the following actions. That's important because what can happen is in this example, if you want known LLMs only, you could literally write a login trigger that blocks unknown LLM. So you can actually restrict which ones are allowed to talk to your database, which agents are allowed to talk to your database, so that you can keep that safe, secure feeling regardless of someone inclined. Like if Jeff clicked on that Grok 4, there's an army of choices you can pick, right? So if you want to ratchet that down to specific, maybe known good ones, you can actually do that through normal mechanisms.
Agents are not perfect. Even with my very specific examples, it tripped a little bit and I had to come in and help it. Um, Up here, some of these agents have, various things in common. Like they'll keep track of tokens consumed, which are basically like representative of like the amount of, correct me if I'm wrong, Kris, it's kind of like the memory space or the amount of, it's almost like just the IO count. It's like the amount of um,
The
content you're asking it to keep in memory for this session.
So it's tokens. So roughly, it's how many words are going back and forth between the LLM and the client here. It's not exactly words because parentheses and commas and semicolons, but roughly it's tokens, which are words or separators.
Yeah.
And then you can also see in Jeff's screen there, right? There's a money currency counter up in the upper right. So the currency of calling these LLMs is tokens. So if you go to something like an open router or whatever and look, you're actually measured and charged based on token counts.
All right. So one of the mechanism of an MCP server is it advertises tools. Tools are sort of like APIs. It's like, hey, what is it we're going to give the ability of the agent to do? And the first thing it's done is it's run a tool to get a list of database connections, grab one of those connections and use it to make a connection. And then the agent has invoked the LLM to generate code that it wants to now run on a tool that we have called Run SQL, which you can guess by name what it does, but in case you don't know what it does, it is showing you here, hey, this is what this is used for, and here is the query that it has created to implement my first request. So you always want to review the code. I've done this many times, so I kind of know what's in here, but I should look to see what's in here. You don't want to see something like drop all tables or shut down database. It should, if it's creating objects, you should have the creates, you should review the DDL, all that sort of stuff. Once you're okay with it, I'm going to hit approve. It's going to execute that and it's going to continue on through the plan. Um, Now, I will be tempted as a human being to use this auto approve mechanism in these agents. I am going to fight that and stay in. I'm in control because I need to be able to correct the agent as it's going. These things do make mistakes. You've heard about hallucinations. You've heard about the LLMs making up functions or code or faking results to keep you happy. That those are real things. I will say, I think with good prompts, you can lessen those occurrences, but they still happen. So you want to remain in control, and that's the best and the most secure way to interact with your database is to not turn over control to the agent.
And it's really important, right? So make sure everyone understands this. Jeff asked it to make an app. It said create a table. If it found a table in that spot with that name, it might choose to delete that table and recreate it. And if you don't review what's in there, you might be unpleasantly surprised at what it did to accomplish its goals.
Yeah, be careful with your language. Saying things like start over could mean something very much different to the agent than what it means to you. Okay, so this prompt that I gave it, if you're curious where that came from, we have something at Oracle called Live Labs. And we have a workshop that takes you through everything that we're doing in this session, like how to install the MCP server. And then we're giving you like some really nice use case, like here's how to build a React app from scratch, all using this FreeSQL data platform as the back end. So this is going to be a resource that you're going to want to bookmark. I'll put this into the chat when we're done. And we're getting there, making good progress. And you look, it ran into an error message. The agents are generally pretty good about detecting problems based on error messages. Oracle's been around, Kris, for a long time, right? These error messages are well known, like the SQL is well known, the constructs are well known. When it runs into problems, it can generally figure it out and work its way around it. But you should always feel free to like take over and stop the plan and inject, hey, you're doing this the wrong way. Here's how I want you to do it. Um, again, you should own the work that this thing is doing on your behalf. You can't really just say, oh, it's not my fault. The agent did it that way.
Yeah, end of the day, somebody's going to call you when something goes wrong, right? And that's not going to be deferrable to the AI.
So instead of asking you to just sit here and watch this run, if we come back here and I close this and refresh my object list, I should see more stuff. Yeah, so here it is starting to create these objects. So if I open my car table, is there any data in there yet? No data yet in the car table. It is doing inserts somewhere, maybe manufacturer. Not there yet either. But if we look at the column definitions, you can see, the type of metadata that's being put in. It's using comments. It's using, I think, pretty decent column names and data types.
That default data looks weird though, right? It chose it's a number
Oh.
column, but it chose a default data of Jeff D. Smith.
Oh no, that's the
Oh, it's
that's
the
my
name of the
schema name,
sequence.
and this is
Gotcha.
the sequence. This, yeah.
I was like, that looks weird.
D,
While we're
yeah,
waiting
yeah.
on that, there's two questions that came across. So, one question was, can I use this, with Olama local? Is it specific to LLMs or anything like that? So this Klein one, again, this is just what Jeff and I have been using, and we ran couple labs at AI World. We'll do it again this way. Them as a team, they're very collaborative. They've been working with us, with Oracle, with the OCI team for quite a while. Um, and that Klein thing, when you go into the configuration of it, it explicitly has an option for using Olama. So it's not tied to Oracle. In general, of course, we're using the OCI, Oracle Cloud hosted LLMs. Specifically in there, right, you can see it's Oracle Code Assist. So Oracle's working on our own Code Assist, but you can hook it up with many, many different other things. From Olama, before we started working with this one, I personally did it with Olama Local as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answered it. And then the other question is this a functional overlap with Select AI? Well, that's a complicated question. So, not complicated in terms of an answer, but complicated in terms of architecture. So, it depends on what you're trying to achieve, right? So, if you look at what MCP enables, we're using a code assist here named Klein. It's in VS Code. It's hooked up to an LLM directly with OCI using Code Assist, Oracle Code Assist. That could be hooked to Claude Code, that could be hooked to OpenAI, it could be hooked to anything. And then as Jeff was showing, right, I'm connecting to a specific database. I can connect to the third database, the 15th database, the production, the non-production, the read-only, all from within this tool in one construct, right? So I can use the one tool, one configuration, one setup, and basically talk to any database that I have connect string to. Select AI flips that upside down a little bit. So what Select AI does is it is inside the database, you configure which LLM you want that database to leverage to answer your question on Select AI. So the configuration has to propagate to every single database you want to use that for. So if you have a API key for OpenAI, and you want to use it on 10 databases, you need to take that to 10 different databases and configure it with all 10 databases. You have to go then make your Select AI has a concept of profiles. You have to go set up those profiles in those things. So depending on what your goals are, if that's what you want and you want to encapsulate it all in a database, great. If you want to have it more at the tool level and switch tools out without having to propagate those configurations, more direct LLM integration from the client, then MCP is more the route there.
I've switched over to slide mode. I'm going to let that continue working on in the background. We'll go check on its progress in a second. Here's another scenario I ran in Klein where I basically gave it a much simpler prompt. Said, here, I want you to do this work. It's engaging the LLM to figure out like, hey, what is this data? What should it look like? How do I get it to fit into the Oracle language constructs? It's doing the work for me. Um, agentic, multi-step, complex projects, very goal-oriented. think big, like what things in your org are costing you the most amount of time, or are the hardest, it doesn't even have to be like technical things. They could be like very simple things, but they're just, process-driven tasks that are, as a developer, my time's expensive. I shouldn't be spending, 90% of my time managing it in Jira. So, Jira offers an MCP server to allow AI to help you be more productive with your Jira tickets. Same kind of thought process for the Oracle database. What are you doing in your database? Are you doing data modeling work? Are you doing DevOps? Are you doing query performance tuning? Are you doing simple business operation reporting? Um, so yeah, we kind of start with like the simple questions, like, hey, how many employees are in my table? But the bigger question would be like, hey, based on the current like job trends, what does my employee pay structure look like? How many employees are we likely to lose for attrition in the next 6 months? These agents in the LLMs can like take what they've been trained on and augment it with the data that's in your database to like tackle those types of problems for you. Um, so your agent is sort of the brain, the guy that's in charge of putting together the plans, and it's generally the interface that you're using to chat with. It's invoking an LLM. These are the pieces of tech that companies have invested billions of dollars in training. It's the LLMs that are generating any code that might get executed on our database via our MCP server. Our MCP server is not generating code, but it is sharing metadata or instructions via the tool definitions back to an agent that can influence how that code is generated. So the types of tasks, number one question Kris and I get like, hey, what can I use this thing for? We were just showing you a simple developer task, but again, you could ask it for, hey, help me make my business run faster. Or, hey, what would happen if a disaster occurred in the real world and how would that impact us digitally in our database? But really what they're asking is not just rows in a table, how are they going to be impacted? But what do those rows in the table represent in the real world? Like our actual product that is shipping, inventory, sales. So we have customers using this in production today. This is a scenario someone shared with us earlier last year. And they were able to interact with their e-business suite database via their agent and LLM using our MCP server. And it was generating queries to navigate their EBS database schema and found, the data that answered those questions. Like, hey, if the world supply chain comes to a halt, here's where it's going to hurt first. Here's where it's going to hurt the most. And more importantly, here are some steps you can take right now to mitigate that stuff. So it's a good mix of like what the agents know, what the agents have been trained on, but also like very specialized advice because it's got access to your actual data. It doesn't have to guess like what your um, product inventory looks like. It knows what it looks like, and it knows what your outgoing orders are going to be. I want to skip through these examples because we spent a lot of time on some live demo, but let's go into just what MCP is. So Model Context Protocol, originally developed and put out there by Anthropic, but has graduated to what's the open source foundation, Kris?
It's the Agentic AI Foundation. It was created so at 13 months after the protocol was created, um, Anthropic, OpenAI, and others got together under the umbrella of the Linux Foundation and created an Agentic AI Foundation and immediately donated MCP to it. Oracle is also on this foundation, so we now have a front row seat, if you will, to helping steer where this MCP stuff goes in the future.
From what we've seen and what the rest of the world has seen, it's probably been seen the fastest adoption level of a protocol in recent memory, if not all time, right? So it kind of
I
came
think
out.
I think it spans industries, right? So again, LLMs are great. You can ask them anything. I asked one of them, I think it was Anthropic or Claude or somebody. I asked it what has taken off and become more of a de facto standard than MCP, because again, it came out last November, and by June, July, We were all chasing it. And then by the end of this past year, right, everybody and their brother is creating MCP servers. There's multiples from Oracle for different things, right? Um, and the LLM's answer to me was that the only thing that was adopted more quickly was all of us humans wearing masks when COVID broke.
Yeah. Um, so this protocol, it now belongs to the open source foundation. Um, Thanks Anthropic for birthing this to the world. Um, it's taken off and has been adopted, I think, and partly because of how basic and simple it is, but also what it represents, like the ability for an agent and its LLMs to do more than what they've been trained on, to actually interact with things. So this is an example developer rig. Like we've been showing VS Code. Not everyone has to use VS Code, but it just as an example, if I'm a Node.js developer and I'm building web applications, I could have in my rig my Docker containers for my databases. I could have my GitHub repo for my code. Of course, I could have my browser to run the application in, and then I'm going to have my Node.js rig set up. I could have MCP servers for each part of that stack. And what that means is when I need to debug my application or if I need to add a feature, when I'm asking an agent for help with that, via an MCP server, it can go out and interact with, touch, in some cases in a write mode, not just a read mode, your file system, your browser. It could go start up and start a container. It could debug why a container is not starting. The database itself, you've seen, you could go into the database, connect, and interact with your schema. I think Chrome has a MCP server for DevTools. So if you want to debug the JavaScript running in your browser, the agent can help with that. So if you're going to be using MCP servers, you'll probably have more than one. And if you're using an Oracle database, you can use our MCP server. So we haven't talked about cost or compatibility yet. That's all good news on that front. It's completely free and it works for any Oracle database, and we don't care where that database is running as long as you have SQLnet connectivity to that database. So for all intents and purposes, Kris and I assume you're either on 19 or something higher because that's the currently supported versions. But if you're on a slightly older version of the database, it's probably going to work there as well.
And super important, on cloud, off cloud, on-prem, Exadata in cloud, autonomous in cloud. This works with every database everywhere, whether you're local on a Docker or on an Exadata on a cloud or a cloud at Azure, right? Any flavor of Oracle database deployed anywhere, you can use this.
Or the database that's running behind freesql.com. So what is it that an MCP server provides to an agent? They refer to these categories as primitives. The most interesting one are the tools. So when you saw us getting those prompts for permission to run SQL, to connect, to list connections, those are named tools that our MCP server provides to the agent, and each of those tools comes with a description. So that's how magically the agent knows that it should use your tool. It's got a list of these tools inventoried with descriptions. So when you ask it to, hey, can you bake me a cake? It sees that it's got an MCP server for a cookbook and it can go look at that for recipes. Or it's got an MCP server to turn on the blender, But for the database, it goes, oh, I've got an MCP server that's literally telling me it can interact with my Oracle database and I can connect to it and I can run SQL on it. So now the agent's able to do more than just generate code and give it to you. It can generate that code and then go run it on your behalf if you want via our MCP server. We can also share prompts, prompt engineering, context engineering. We even have a repo here at Oracle internally where folks can contribute prompts and reuse those because people put a lot of time and energy into prompts. We could share prompts with customers to help them with frequently used tasks. But at the moment, we've done most of our engineering side on the tools. And the way we deliver this to you is known as a local MCP server. So if you're already working directly with an Oracle database, let's say you're connecting to a database with a set of credentials and you're using something like SQL Developer, this works in a similar fashion. So our command line interface, which has been around for more than 10 years, has been re-engineered to now also be able to run as an MCP server locally. So on my machine next to where VS Code is running, I have SQLcl available, and VS Code can now start that, or the agent can start that as it needs to start interacting with the MCP server and via that our database. So it does run locally. It communicates via standard in and out. And so it's going to be able to work with your database via the known database connections on my machine. So if I've used our GUI, which would be SQL Developer Extension for VS Code, or if I've used the command line interface SQLcl to define a named connection, when you ask it to say, hey, what databases do I have to work with? It's basically pulling the list of connections you've defined via our tools. Just a quick advertisement for SQLcl itself. It's everything SQL Plus is and much, much more. It's the modern command line interface you expect to see in 2026. So simple, easy to read, query results, commands to do very complicated things, SQL history, tab completion, interfaces to most of the things the database has put out there in terms of infrastructure management. Like we have a command for data pump. I can simply type data pump export and it automatically dumps out the current schema versus me having to write 67 lines of PL SQL.
And even
These,
easier now, all of these are accessible through MCP. You can say, Mr. Overlord, please data pump this out for me.
yes, exactly. So one of the tools we give you is the ability to not just access the code the LLM has generated, but it can access the commands that SQLcl offers up. So here are the actual list of tools. On the right is a screenshot of what it might look like in your MCP marketplace or in the list of inventory tools that are running. You can see the tool names, their parameters, and the descriptions. It's those descriptions that inform the agent what they can and can't do. I think one of the most important things is your agent and the LLM is not interacting directly with the database. It's not generating code to go run on the command line to invoke SQL Plus. It's not generating Python code and pulling down the Python driver and connecting and doing things. It's making requests to our man in the middle, SQLcl, to say, hey, here's a database I want to work with, and here's the code I want you to run for me on that database. So the agent never sees your credentials. We keep those secured in local wallets. The mid-tier or the SQLcl, code handles all of that. The agent, whether you're using Gemini or Claude or Klein or whatever, or even if you've built your own Python agent, it's just interacting with the database via our MCP server. So it's never going to have the credentials. So here's what it kind of looks like in this local implementation.
So a key thing to think about in this is MCP is not magic. It is simply the pipe between X and the LLM. In our case, of course, it's a database, right? But if you think about what it's doing, the LLM is simply saying, I want a resource over there. Give me a pipe to do it. Rewind a year ago, that's called an API. At the end of the day, MCP is nothing more than an API that got standardized immensely fast because the LLMs were so hungry and everyone jumped on board. But at the core, it's just a JSON payload coming in and roughly a JSON payload coming back, right? It's a structured piece of content going in, structured set of parameters going in, and then the magic, if there's any, happens inside where we run that SQL, where we run that data pump command, how that is done, and how we telegraph that back to the LLM that those specific things are possible and allowable so it has it in its inventory to accomplish what the end user is asking.
You saw us do this live, but just really quickly, when you're in a chat mode in your agent and you start giving it tasks and it comes up with plans and asks to work with your MCP server, remember, stay engaged, review the requests, make sure that they are doing what you think they should be doing, and feel free to hit the cancel button and amend your prompt and have it go again. Make sure it's connecting to the right database. You'll see these chats stored and remembered by your agent, but every time your agent goes and works with the database again, it might have forgotten everything it had done before. So you might find yourself putting more and more information in your prompts to avoid that going forward. We've also built some technology to basically preload the agent with the information it needs to be more successful working with your database, which I'll talk about here in a second. But this basic workflow of the permission model, you want to stay there and not turn on the auto approve. It's too dangerous unless you're in a completely local environment with a throwaway database. All right, so getting
So someone
started.
asked the question, right? Are we
Oh yeah,
enabling this to production databases? I'm just gonna say, if you didn't hear all our cautions and all our, watch what it's doing and whatever, if you didn't hear all that and translate that to holy cow, we should not give it direct access to production, you weren't listening. Um, Everything is with a caution, right? So could I connect it to production? Maybe. Maybe that means I create a read-only database account so that I can do nothing more than get trivial reports out. Not trivial, but get read-only reporting, right? If I hook it to a read-write account, it might do stuff if you're not paying attention. Do I hook it to a DBA level account? Same answer, right? So be very cautious what you're hooking it up to, what databases, like, I don't know, a while ago, Jeff said, make sure you know which database it's connecting to, right? So if you have 10 database connections saved and they have ambiguous names, make sure. Make the names clear, right? Make it very clear, very obvious. Be its overlord. Don't let it be the one running the show.
or restrict the access it has by, giving it only the connections it should be using, which we allow you to do. Um,
With
if
that
I were a
said,
DBA and I wanted to use it, I would create the dumbest junior DBA account you've ever seen. Like if someone's first day on the job and they needed an account to start playing around, it's like that level, but maybe even less access.
or
And
you
for
take
reporting,
an AWR export, put it into an AWR warehouse, and you let it have access to the warehouse. Someone asked a
right.
question a little while ago of, hey, this is all cool, but I'm a DBA. How does it help me? Um, Jeff got a tweet. Are they still tweet posts? Whatever, just
Yeah.
last week of some guy said, hey, I went in the next morning and asked the Claude, specifically with Claude with this one, review what ran last night from an ETL and batch and make recommendations. He said it literally took it from a 45-minute query to a 30-second query. So these things are incredibly powerful if you use them correctly.
Just remain incredibly paranoid and don't trust. Don't trust, always review. Um, we try to make our tools as easy as possible to deploy. By far, the easiest path is if you use our VS Code extension. So if you go into VS Code in the marketplace and you search for SQL Developer, install it, ta-da, you now have access to our MCP server. If I'm in VS Code and I open up our command palette, or not our command palette, but if you access the command palette, there's actually a item here that says configure client SQLcl MCP. Almost all of these agents use a JSON string that basically looks like this. It basically points to the application. We generate this code for you. And this is actually not specific to Klein. You could probably generate this code and use it for any other sort of agent that you want. But this tells the agent where it can find the binary. And then if you want to see if that's set up right, if you come in here and you go to configure, you'll see that the MCP server, if this is green, you're good to go. And in Klein, if I expand this, this is where you can see all of the tools.
And even in
Ah,
here, if you guys are DIYing your own MCP server, right? Nothing to do with us. You're doing it yourself. I'm just going to say the same things I've been saying all over again, right? Can you pull that back out, Jeff?
oh, sorry, I clicked the wrong button. Yep.
The descriptions of the tools. So what happens, right, is the LLM, the MCP client wakes up, says, I have 15 servers configured. Let me inventory those servers' tools. Those tools have descriptions, and that's what you see here. These descriptions matter because these descriptions are what in turn helps the LLM to decide, I have a tool, this tool is capable of doing X, and X is going to help me get my job done. So don't underestimate how much giving more and more context to the LLM is incredibly important.
Yeah, it's basically a prompt. That's the level of care. The better you give it, the better it's going to do. Is it still trying to insert data? It's gotten trapped here somehow, but it will.
Oh, you gotta hit the resume button. It paused. So a lot of these things too, I'm sure everyone has seen this, right? A lot of them to not burn your tokens and burn your wallet, they kind of, if you're not paying attention, they'll pause and you have to come back and hit a resume or continue or keep thinking kind of button.
Take my money, do my work for me. So the VS Code extension is one option, but you can also grab SQLcl. We have it in the OCI Yum repo. It's also in the Homebrew repo if you're on a Mac. It's on oracle.com/SQLcl, so you can curl it down if you want. You just need to use the command line interface to create a connection, give it a name, make sure the password is saved. At that point, it's going to have a database to work with.
And
Or
everyone
you can
take
use
note of Jeff's password there.
Yeah, I should have put a number in there, right? Use good passwords, please. Um, we keep these in wallets. Yeah, use good connection names. All right, so security. Can I use it in my Oracle HCM Cloud instance? That's one of the questions. Or can I use this in prod? Um, it's going to be able to do whatever credentials you give it in general is going to be able to do in that database. So if it can generate code to truncate a table and you have the alter privilege in that system, it could theoretically truncate your table. Um, and then for sure, your DBA is going to need help recovering that. It's one of the hardest recovery tasks to do after a truncate. So create accounts that can only do the things you want them to do and use those accounts to do the work. Be in systems that are already sanitized, right? Be in a data warehouse, read-only system that's been redacted or has had critical or private information obfuscated or removed. Yeah, and you're going to want end-to-end logging on this stuff, which we try to help with, which I'll show you here in a second. And I already talked about don't trust, always verify. So you saw when it was saying the LLM was unknown for generating those sequels. We use that information on the incoming tool request on the MCP server. We start instrumenting or logging the work in the database itself. And so in your schema, there's a table dbtools $MCP log. So this table right here, I kind of get a running list of everything that it's been doing for me. So unknown. What was this is the last thing it's done. So here's the last thing it tried is this insert. And we're also including the LLM in use in the generated SQL itself. Actually, that's not true. We're instructing the agent when it submits SQL to be executed on our MCP server to include in the generated SQL this comment.
And you got to remember again, back talked about that unknown thing a minute ago. We're not driving the conversation, right? There's an MCP client, which is your chat window or client. That MCP client is working with the LLM to use us as a tool. So we don't have the knowledge of who's instructing us to do things unless it tells us. Like you'll see there on the lower end of Jeff's things, right? Lines 12 to 15. Claude AI identified itself properly. I'm using Claude AI. I'm using Sonnet 4, model number 202, sounds like a serial number or something.
It's the date,
Is it? Oh, yeah. That's an
2025.
old one now, right?
It's an old one. It's
Um,
still pretty good.
but when the things all work together, it gives you a really nice audit trail. And again, you can prohibit the ones that don't identify themselves with things like, plain old database login triggers and whatnot.
Right. So you'll also see, you might have the question now as a DBA. In fact, if you're not wondering this right now, and if you're a DBA, I'm a little worried for you. Hey, is anyone using this in my database right now? Well, when the SQLcl MCP server starts up and starts creating database connections, we identify ourselves to the database. via the program attribute in $session. So if you know for a fact that this is not the proper place for people to be doing things via agents and LLMs, right, create a trigger, auto login, disconnect, kill the session, send an email, log the violation, do the bad cop, whatever it is that you want to do. But you also see that we're logging the tools that are being run as the action. And we use the module column, I think, for the LLM that was used. And then here's just another view of that table via the VS Code extension. So it's a nice little library of what you've done. We don't maintain this table after we insert the record, so you might want to clear this out every now and then. Here are just a few more examples of things you can use to do work. It's really literally anything you can do with the database. I haven't really heard of a scenario yet where I was like, oh no, it's pretty clear that the LLM and the agents can't help with that yet. And the database team here at Oracle is extending what you're going to be able to do with our MCP server, right? So the high availability data guard team is going to bring out the ability to make, managing your standby instances that much easier, to make sure your configurations are correct. We're working with other teams as well on the security side. And so, it's not just like having the MCP server generate the SQL from scratch and hoping it does it right. When we give you bespoke tools to do specific things, it's not relying on the LLM to generate the query right. It's just like, oh, hey, do this task in the database for me. And we're making sure that code is correct.
So real quick, based on what Jeff just said, there was a question that came across of, does the MCP do NL to SQL? So again, MCP is just a mechanism, a tool, right? So the LLM uses MCP to interrogate the database. We have a schema info tool directly, or it could query, select star from DBA tables. It can interrogate the database. That knowledge goes back to the LLM with the question that was posed, so the LLM can construct that query, which of course then we have a tool that allows it to execute that query. So we're not driving the NL to SQL, but we are making tools so that the LLM can learn the database, if you will, learn the thing better so it can construct a better NL to SQL query.
We're nearing the end. I just have this one topic left, and then we're going to turn it back over to our hosts, and then maybe if we can run a little bit long on Q&A, we'll do that. So generating SQL can be hard for us humans and also the LLMs, depending on like how well structured, laid out, and organized your schema is. If you've got a commercial off-the-shelf application that was built 20 years ago and by people that don't really understand how databases work, it's going to be a challenge for the LLM to navigate your dictionary to figure out where your data is when you start asking these questions. So we give you the ability now for your databases to use our UI to come in and basically annotate or notate how things are laid out. Hey, this collection of tables allows you to deal with our retail operations. This set of tables allows you to deal with our sales system. This set of tables allows you to deal with our HR system. And then for each of those tables, you can explain what each column is used for, how they're related to each other. So think of it as like a power set of comments. And then we deliver this information that you've added back to the agent via a new tool called schema information. And this is also a single way consistently for us to provide the contents basically of your dictionary to the agent so it can do better NL to SQL. So instead of it sitting there querying, oh, hey, let's go get a list of tables. Now let's get a list of comments. Now let's get a list of columns. Now let's get a list of this. We can send it back over in one batch and it's optimized for tokens, right? So we bring it back over in, I think, a CSV. I think it's the most we could squeeze it down. And it's really going to increase the batting average of like how well the agent does on its first shot out of the box. It's still run into issues. It can still self-correct by going in and generating some SQL to figure out what's what, but this kind of loads it up with what it needs to go. Folks are loving this. Sorry, Kris.
Oh, no, go ahead.
This is real. I'm a PM, so I hype stuff a lot. The hype factor here is real. People are using this to do real things. We feel 2026 is going to be a banner year for like our data platform here at Oracle and what it's capable of with things like MCP and of course our um, the agents that we give our customers so they can get better experiences with their data. Um, we really want just out of this session is to let you know what the capability is and then give you the tools you need to get started. You're really going to want to take a long time to come up with like the plan for your organization to put this into your production because you're going to need rules and guidelines and auditing and controls and if you need help with any of that, or if you want to share your story back with us, please connect with us on LinkedIn. Or actually, if you have negative feedback or if you're running into problems, we want to hear that too.
No, send those ones to Jeff. I don't want those ones.
The good stuff goes to Kris, the bad stuff goes to me. Here are some resources for you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Kris and Jeff, for such an awesome session. Really appreciate your time and help. And I also hope that this was a good learning experience for everyone. And if you wanted to learn more, here are a few links that will be able to walk you through Oracle Cloud, get your hands-on experience, as well as detailed documentation, and our learning videos on YouTube as well. And if you enjoyed the session and would like us to conduct a personalized training session for your organization, do email us at our personal training email and we'll reach out to you. And also, if you would like us to conduct a hands-on session with our newly designed QuickShot Live Labs program for a more expedited hands-on learning experience, these touch on specific cloud concepts. And under Code Innovate program, this is where we'll co-develop a solution based on your own use case. So please remember that personal training is an investment that we make in our customers to help you grow and develop your OCI skills at no extra cost. And touching on our other Day One to Beyond series and upcoming sessions for the month of January, you'll still have a chance to attend some of the other series. And for our next session in the database series will be on February 2nd. And in this session, you'll learn how Oracle AI Database can simultaneously work with JSON and relations tables and how to integrate it with tools such as MongoDB. So thank you so much for joining today. I hope you learned something new and hope to see you in our next one. Have a wonderful day.